Faith and Goal.
Joining us now, Bob Sturm, somebody I've known for quite some time, at Sports Sturm via Twitter. He's part of the wildly popular Hardline Afternoon Drive show on the Ticket in Dallas. It's a flamethrower, and Bob joins us now. Thanks for helping, my man. And I've been meaning to ask you this question for years. And when I looked at your Twitter yesterday, it triggered the question. What's behind your Twitter profile picture and that half man, half zombie?
It's a Sons of Anarchy tribute.
Oh, yes.
Back in the day, Jax Teller of Sons of Anarchy, that showed up as one of the FX promo posters for a season of Sons of Anarchy, and I always liked Jax, and I consider myself just as handsome.
Yes.
And so I thought half skull, half me was appropriate, so I don't know. And it's kind of silly, but so am I.
Much like Jax Teller, you're very comfortable riding hogs.
I always love that one.
Wouldn't that be and I love that. I love that series. I don't watch TV a lot or like series and stuff like that, but like the end of that, without, for those who want to watch it one day, the end of it was so sad.
Yeah. It was very solid television in its day. I have no regrets.
All right, at Sports Sturm.
Shout out to Jax.
At Sports Sturm via Twitter, and Bob is an elite sports mind, and let's get right to it, man. With that 4-hour drive time show that you have, Hardline, you're a co-host. How do you balance the 4-hour afternoon show with the Stars and Mavs in the Western Conference finals, the Rangers playing off a World Series win, and the super popular Cowboys still as counterfeit as ever? Like, how do you balance it?
I don't know. It's a great question. It's honestly, we've had plenty of years in DFW where nothing was happening sports-wise. So now that everything's happening sports-wise, we should not act like this is normal. It's not. It's insane, and the last month has been crazy, and it continues. Now, the good news, PA, is that finally here in round 3, at least the Stars and Mavs games won't be happening simultaneously, because that was the whole second round, and it was horrible. So finally they each get their own night, and we can go through the thrill of victory and the agony of defeat in real time without any interruption. So the Rangers are kind of on the back burner right now, as will happen in a baseball season during the playoffs for hockey and basketball. But that's okay; they'll be around.
But I would imagine you get texts, or if you guys do talkbacks or phone calls or emails or whatever. Like the Cowboys are so popular, not only there but everywhere. I mean, do people, are they so bit by the Stars and the Mavs they couldn't care less right now about Cowboys organized team activities?
Yeah, I think so. Well, it's not just Stars and Mavericks, though. It's the Cowboys themselves have put this fan base in a zombie-like trance themselves, where I think the Cowboys could go 16-1 next year, and people would be largely unmoved until they see something in January. And I think the fact that the Packers dropped an elbow on them in the wild card round in a game where they did not see that coming, because finally Aaron Rodgers was gone and they could deal with Green Bay. That one really hurt the credibility of the Cowboys situation. Dude, they're 12-5, 12-5, 12-5. They're 36-15 over the last 3 years, and everybody sort of acts like they're going to get a top 5 pick next year because there's no hope. So that's you know the drill. So the storyline, knowing you as long as I have, the storyline that I'm guessing is most deeply rooted in your heart of all hearts ever to heart right now would be the Stars, because once a Scotty, always a Scotty, right? You just love hockey. Yeah. Love the game. Love the game very much. Now I'm also psycho enough that I'm super plugged into the NBA. Have been my whole life, and so I am the type of sports nerd that if you ask me my favorite sport, it will depend on what day and what month you ask me, because I am endlessly fascinated by all of this. But I definitely have found my niche in Dallas, Texas, by arriving in 1998 and finding out that none of the media down here had ever really followed hockey before. And so get in where you fit in, and explain the two-line pass to the Texans and so forth. And they understood the fighting part of it. They enjoyed Shane Churla. But yeah, hockey is it was my entrance to DFW, so I can't ever leave that behind. I love those guys, and I've had tickets ever since.
Speaking of the fighting part of it, Sports Sturm, at Sports Sturm, Bob Sturm, ticket in Dallas. PJ Washington, it's his career's been resurrected. He hits big threes from the corner, but like back to the Clippers series, he and Westbrook, the OKC series. I'm not saying PJ is dirty. I'm not going to put him in like the Draymond Green category, but he is a tough-minded agitator, isn't he?
Tough-minded for sure. I probably agitator. Honestly, PA, from where I sit, watching the Mavericks play from the time they drafted a 19-year-old Dirk Nowitzki, they have always had the rap for 25 seasons of being soft. And whether that's fair or not is a subjective question, but objectively, they've won a ton of games. They've been to the NBA Finals twice. They've been to the Western Finals like 5 times. In fact, fun trivia question, even though you didn't ask me, Mark Cuban has been to more conference championship games than Jerry Jones.
Wow.
So that one's free. But the ability for this team to get a little bit of toughness was important, and they've done that. They've built a roster around Doncic that is filled with scrappers, bunch of guys who won't back down, who will get in your face. Yes, in some cases that means American dudes with sharp elbows surrounding either the big German or now the medium-sized Slovenian, and they it fits well. They're a tough team now, and I've never seen it before. In fact, they can. Now, I'm not saying they can do it against Minnesota because that's a different animal, of course. But they have controlled the paint in these first two rounds. They have outdunked their opponent substantially in these first two rounds. And honestly, you've never been able to really say that about a Mavericks team. So it's pretty wild to see this personality shift under Nico Harrison and Jason Kidd.
When Luka now he plays with a Permascal, and I'm a fan. And I've said this 15 times, but I caught a Mavericks game into the season at Miami when the Heat were full strength with Butler, Adebayo, and Tyler Hero, and they needed the game. And Luka and Kyrie just went down there and killed him. I mean, and that was part of a heater at the end of the season for the Mavs. And I jumped on the radio next day, and I'm like, I got to share what I just saw. I mean, these guys they're a problem, and they can go to the NBA Finals, and here they are a step from it. So with Luka, when he gets frustrated and things go against him, generally speaking, what's happening?
Well, he's probably not getting his way. I mean, he's Tim Duncan times 2 or 3 in terms of believing he deserves calls, and he often does. It's a weird deal because when guys are emotional, it works against them. They think they're working the refs to their favor, but I think they're working the refs to their detriment, where the refs get sick and tired of hearing from you, and they want you to just tough it out like some of the other guys do. And so the more I think, honestly, and here's one for you. We just did Sons of Anarchy. Let's move over to Empire Strikes Back, where young Luke is trying to be a Jedi, and he's emotionally immature. And Yoda is working with him to understand that get your anger out of this, get your emotions out of this, and then you can be a calm Jedi and take care of things. And there are nights where Luka is a calm Jedi, and I promise you, on those nights, nobody in the world can stop him. And then there are other nights where he loses the plot and chases the refs around and doesn't always have great focus because he's emotionally lost in the woods. And those are the nights you can get at him a little bit. And so it's a work in progress. I'd like to tell you he's learned in his 6 years of being an NBA superstar. But honestly, we just saw in the last round, in round 4, in game 4, he lost his mind against Oklahoma City. Then in game 5, he never wavered and destroyed them. And then in game 6, in the first half, he was emotional. and they were behind.
Wow.
And then at halftime, he kind of regained his composure, and they were, again, unstoppable. So he's one of one, PA. You've never seen anything like Luka Doncic. He is a genius. He is one of the most gifted players I've ever seen, but he also is an acquired taste. And the visceral reaction he gives a fan base who isn't real familiar with him is generally their first thought is, I can't stand this guy. But sometimes after a 2-week series, and maybe this will happen in Minnesota, at some point it's like, man, this guy is kind of a ball handling modern day Larry Bird in terms of how much of a genius, how eyes in the back of his head, how he's so good at manipulating everything, how almost like a gifted soccer player like Messi. He sees 3 plays ahead, or he can see through traffic, see a path nobody else can even imagine. So keep an eye on Doncic. He's one of a kind. There are very few comps, even though I just tried Larry Bird. But he's really a special talent and an interesting one as well, because like I said, he can burn hot at times.
As is Kyrie. And when he played in the NBA Finals with Cleveland, he had some really good defensive moments on Steph. And, Kyrie's high end. He's one of the best ball handling guards in the history of the NBA. His box scores are down, but that doesn't mean he's not necessarily impacting games, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Kyrie is fascinating for on and off court reasons, but you asked about the on court impact, and I should answer that one properly by simply saying he seems like at times he's waiting for basically to be told attack. And there's always a chemistry issue when you have a couple superstars where it's like, okay, when is it my turn? And Kyrie is so self-assured. Like, he does not at any point show insecurity about his numbers, or he hasn't shot in the last 5 minutes, so he needs to get a shot. He's not like that. At times, he sits back and lets Luka cook, and then there's this deal where it's almost like, Jason Kidd nods at him and says, go get me 18 points this quarter, and he does it. Like, he is an incredible ability to step on the gas, and I really think Kyrie's going to be huge in this series because he's been kind of passive in these last 2 rounds a little bit, and I think Oklahoma City really made him a focus of their defense, partly because Luka's knee has been pretty jacked up, but I think Luka's knee is getting better. And, during the season, those two averaged 60 points a game combined, 59-5 or something like that. And about 4 or 5 games into the Oklahoma City series, that had dropped to about 35 a game, 37. And so, man, they lost 22 points a game from Luka and Kyrie. That's crazy. Well, luckily, P.J. Washington and many other friends were scoring, and they were still winning games. But I think in this series, they're going to have to go back to that 60 points a game between Luka and Kyrie if they're going to be able to score, because the paint is going to be more difficult to come by against your big boys.
Last 2 here, Sports Sturm, and the only time the Mavericks beat the Wolves this year. I mean, the 4-game series was bastard in that Luka played 2, Kyrie played 1. But when they played together, they combined for 69, I'm sure, as you know, and they were able to beat the Timberwolves, and they've had some really, really good games, close games against the Wolves. Now, I know, Tim Hardaway Jr. has been around a decade and small change, but honestly, I followed him all of his career. What's happened to his game? And he's playing like 6 minutes. It's weird.
Yeah, he's been an instant offense guy off the bench most of his career, and he just doesn't believe that his shots are going to drop. And Hardaway is one-dimensional enough that if he can't make shots, he's kind of useless. And so if Hardaway could suddenly find his stroke again, he could swing the series.
Yep.
But as it stands right now, they're looking everywhere else on the bench but him, because you can kind of see it in his body language. He doesn't really believe what he is selling. And this has gone on for, I want to say 3 months or so. Like, he's in a horrible slump. And so, again, they could use it, because the best way to beat the Timberwolves is to spread them out and to have some snipers from deep.
Right.
But I just don't know that Hardaway, can be counted on. The other guy who can really help them in this series, but is a question mark, is Maxi Kleba.
Thank you.
Who is a big and can get out there, but his shoulder has been compromised big time in the Clippers series, and we're not sure when he'll be available. But if he does come available, that's big, because none of the other Maverick bigs are going to hurt you from the perimeter at all.
And lastly, the Gafford Lively 1-2, is it effective? Like, what do you like about it?
Oh, it's unbelievable. It's transformed the team. It's allowed them to, first of all, turn into Lob City. Again, I'm sure Minnesota takes that away with Gobert and Cat, but against most teams, especially the Clippers and the Thunder, the number of dunks per game is somewhere between, half a dozen and a dozen, and it's mostly because of a pick and roll with these guys playing above the rim. They also rim protect. They also help you win on the boards. They've transformed the team to where I know Minnesota is the gold standard for defense right now, but since the trade deadline, the Mavs have actually been the number one defense in the NBA. Now, I know that's a sample size abnormality, and I'm not here to say that it's like for like, but Dallas in many ways is a poor man's version of Minnesota defensively now, with the rim protection. And there are nights, in fact, there are many nights where you can get 20 and 15 from Gafford plus Lively.
Right.
And the Mavericks have never had 20 and 15 from the 5 position. That's crazy. And so Lively definitely looks like a 19-year-old version of Tyson Chandler back when the Mavericks won the title in 2011. So when they said that on draft night, it was hard to believe, because at Duke, he played 1 year and had 5 and 5. And we're like, come on, if he's doing 5 and 5 in the ACC, how could he resemble Tyson Chandler at the NBA level? And then his first game as a pro, he had a double-double. He had his career high in organized basketball at the NBA level. So Derek Lively's is fantastic. Gafford's a little more mature, and so they start him. But you're going to see plenty of both of them, and it's really changed the fabric of the Mavericks is to have a couple rim protectors like that.
And lastly, I think from a Maverick standpoint, what's coming with the on-ball defense against a team that goes isolation in big moments with Luka and Kyrie is Jaden McDaniels and Anthony Edwards. All right, think to a February 2023 game down there at American Airlines Arena. Dallas is down 3. McDaniels pokes it away from Doncic, goes to the backcourt, and then Edwards and McDaniels locked down Doncic and Kyrie, and they didn't even get a shot off. So the Timberwolves can do things like that. But on the other side, the like that first round matchup, where Dallas got killed that first game against a very middling Clippers team without Kawhi. But Zubats played his ass off that series, man. And, he plays closer to Gobert than Chet Holmgren, all right, who can be pushed around. Now, from a Wolves standpoint, they've seen Nurkic and Eubanks, and then they get Jokic, who doesn't block shots, where now they get Gafford and Lively. So that's going to be eye-opening for the Wolves. And, after Jamal Murray can beat you off the dribble, but that's it from a guard standpoint for them. Devin Booker beats you off the dribble, but that's it from a guard standpoint for them. Now it's Luka and Kyrie. So, that's going to be eye-opening tonight for the Timberwolves, and I'm sure they'll be ready for it. But, this is a fascinating series, man.
Yeah, it is. And it's going to come down to who can get it going offensively, because it's two really good defenses, and it feels like 95-93 is the final score of a lot of these games. And I think from a Mavs standpoint, if Luka can take over some games offensively, and that doesn't necessarily mean points. This is a triple-double machine. This is a guy who can lead the NBA in assists.
Yeah.
I think he finished second this year. So look for him to be on the ball. Look for, I think then it's interesting what Chris Finch decides to do with the pick and roll, and I assume drop coverage with Rudy. But, so there are so many chess pieces that will be moved in the way these two teams try to produce offense that I think this could be a real street fight of a series.
Yeah.
So I hope it's a good one.
Last one, I promise. Luka's just not interested in playing defense, is he?
No, honestly, I think that's wrong. I think since the trade deadline, I think you will see him, contributing. Now, again, he's not going to make an all-defensive team, but if they can get him with his size and again the bulk of this guy, and some might say he could spend a little more time in the weight room, but they'll list him at 230. I promise you, PA, he's not below 250, and so. He is a physical dude, and he's also very smart in getting in passing lanes. And I think teams around the league have realized that he is not a piñata or a giant target for your offense. Now, you're not going to switch him on to Ant very often, but I don't see teams hunting Luka like they tried when he was in his first 2 years in the league. I think he's a lot more engaged. And I think he's part of what makes this Mavericks defense pretty formidable these days. So keep an eye on that. That will be an interesting storyline as well. But I assume he'll start, probably defending the guy who defends him, which is McDaniels.
My man, thanks for the hard line on the series. God bless you and your family. You're fantastic at what you do. And I'm sure we'll catch up again, maybe even before the series is over, okay?
Yeah, let's do it, PA. Great to hear from you, man.
Yep, see you. That's Bob Sturm, at Sports Sturm via Twitter. He's an elite sports mind, and he works for The Ticket down DFW way. Around the corner, some keys and concerns into the series for the Mavericks and or the Wolves. Talkbacks can be fired also if you want to go to the free iHeartRadio app, find the baby microphone, and give us your very best for 30 seconds. And then News du Nord after that. YA, young Alec Lewis of The Athletic joins in studio at about 11 o'clock. I'm Paul Allen. Nordo is the producer and also the deliverer of the cash.
Indeed, the keeper of the cash. The Fan and BigDeck.com want to give you a chance to put $1,000 in your hand with the National Cash Contest. Just go to KFAN.com and use the keyword grand. You might win $1,000 with the keyword grand at KFAN.com.
One of those guys that's when the ball's in his hands, everybody's playing at his pace. The whole game kind of slows down. He can make every pass on the floor, plus score for himself. Does a great job of being able to manipulate the defense with his passing, just, whether he's making the pass or freezing the defender with a look off or something like that. And just got to be able to kind of affect him any way you possibly can.
We advance by Finchy Faith, and he was there discussing Luka Doncic, Chris Finch, coach of the Minnesota Timberwolves, and welcome you back to 9 to noon. Now, we're calling an audible right now, Mr. Nordquist.
Okay.
We are making this Timber Bites.
Yeah.
Timber Bites are provided by...
Timber Bites are brought to you by grass-fed beef's finest. Thousand Hills lifetime grazed grass-fed beef, whether it's supporting Dinkytown Athletics, whether it's supporting local Coburns, co-op locations, Thousand Hills, it's a fantastic product. Go get some today. Okay, Timber Bites with talkbacks and some audio, I understand Eric has. And also some takes and talkers as we howl into a Wednesday evening, 7:30, Life Changer, Target Center. Wolves and Mavericks, Western Conference finals. Second time in the last 3 years the Mavericks have been there. Second time in the history of the team the Wolves have been here. I forgot to look this up. But the Timberwolves have been in existence, 35 years? Is it 3.5 decades? It's right around there, I would guess. Their first season would have been 89-90, maybe?
Yeah, the point being is that, in reading and absorbing information about this series the last couple of days, quite honestly, in voracious fashion. I've noticed that with certain media members, who cover the team, but that there are common threads here. And one is it would involve the word destiny, where it'd be like Timberwolves have been around, 35 years, something like that?
35 years.
All right. So they've been around 3.5 decades, been through a lot. I mean, one of the great things ever uttered on FM 100.3 KFAN came from this chair into this microphone from the mouth of the morning show host Corey Cove, who at one point became so frustrated with the lack of defense Ricky Davis was playing, he started calling him Ricky Avis.
I always love that one.
Because there's no D in Davis. So then you go back to MV3 with Spree and Cassell with the bad back into the Lakers series. KG, Wally gets nicked up, comes off the bench. Before that, Stephon Marbury, Pooh Richardson. Before that, they're playing at Metrodome for some games. So there's just been a lot, and the fan base has endured a lot. So some of the things I read here or see is like, the Timberwolves are playing so well, and their defense is best in show with all the teams in the postseason, that they're kind of destined to win it. They just look like they have the look of a team that can certainly get to the NBA Finals, but potentially can win it. So then you flip to the Mavericks side of the equation, and they've won an NBA championship down Big D way, but they've been to the Western Conference Finals 2 of the last 3 years. And as mentioned ad nauseum in this time slot, Kyrie, Luka, Kyrie is working. I mean, it's working at a really, really fluid, selfless level, even though those are a couple of ball hogs would be too strong. They both want to score. And they, in big spots, I've noticed in big situations with Kyrie and or Luka, is they'll share, but only with each other. And I'm talking about ends of quarters, ends of halves, ends of games that are close. So I'm curious to see how that's going to work. That's part of the key and concern for me, because Edwards and Jaden McDaniels have established themselves as two of the very best on-ball defenders of those who like to isolate in the NBA. In fact, if somebody were to go there 1-2, certainly 1-2 together, I'm not going to argue because of what we've seen against Jamal Murray, what we've seen to a certain extent with things Jaden McDaniels has done through both of the series. And that's going to be needed because Irving and Doncic can run around you and they can shoot over you. And they will shoot from 30 feet. So think Steph Curry, Damian Lillard, and Caitlin Clark. Kyrie Irving, Luka for sure, but Kyrie to a certain extent. They'll pull up from anywhere, and they hit them. And Kyrie has NBA Finals experience where he was a dog. Now he's playing with LeBron, but he was a dog. But they don't share. That they want to do it themselves at very key moments of games. And Oklahoma City, it's a young, spry team and a team that at one point of the season was turning the ball over fewer times than anybody in the NBA, and they were also forcing the most turnovers of anybody in the NBA. Very fast, physically gifted, active team. We know OKC with Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. But when their three-point game, as they learned, stopped, and the Celtics better be careful, too, because it's going to bite them one of these days, and they're going to lose 2 in a row and be in trouble. It's like when you're so reliant on the three-point game, like OKC or the Boston Celtics, and it doesn't work. Well, then you get in trouble and you get bounced. And in watching the final game between Dallas and Oklahoma City Thunder, Minnehaha Academy go crazy. Chet Holmgren's terrific. He's a fantastically gifted offensive player, and defensively he blocks and changes shots. Super sleight of frame. And Gafford, Lively, PJ Washington, and even Doncic at certain times pushed him around, and Dallas got the right rebounds. When I say the right rebounds, I mean they're like down 8 and they're charging and they're on an 8-0 run. They get a rebound because Holmgren gets pushed. They score. Holmgren gets pushed out of the way again. They go score again. Well, that ain't Gobert, and that ain't Naz Reid, and that's not Karl Anthony Towns. So that's going to be different for the Dallas Mavericks. And, early in the game of Game 7 against the Denver Nuggets, I mean, we were just getting smashed in the paint, man. I mean, they like points that were taking place in the key, in the paint, as we say in the business. At one point, the Nuggets were up 13 or 15-2, right in front of half. They were just killing us in the paint. Then that thing flipped. Well, that even against Gafford and Lively, Gafford can score. Lively, he's alley-oop guy, shot block guy. He's run all around the court, active guy. Very, very gifted rookie who still has a lot to learn. He gets in foul trouble and a hot tick. But this is markedly different for Minnesota compared to the big they just faced in Nikola Jokic, who does the majority of his damage from the high post. And then the series before that, Nurkic, we got nicked up, but Nurkic and Eubanks, they don't play like Gafford and Lively. And the Timberwolves have yet to see a true shot blocker this entire postseason run, where the Mavericks faced Zubats, who can block shots, but he's not really known for his shot blocking, but he played out of his mind. I mean, Ivica Zubats was awesome in the Clippers losing series against Dallas. And Holmgren had big moments and can score, but he's different than what we have here. Conversely, the Wolves have not seen anything close to Daniel Gafford and Derek Lively. And of course, they're going to be ready for it, but winning the rebounding battle and not letting Luka and or Kyrie kick your ass in the key, because that's what they do. And pump fake, stop and go, hesitation. They live for the and one. And they both have been to the foul line 8 million times in their careers. So that's just a little key and concern snapshot for what's coming compared to what we've seen.
Whew. Timber Bites, brought to you by Thousand Hills. I'm glad you mentioned points in the paint, because Bob Sturm mentioned it. And looking into this series, that was a concern for me because of those two guys that you just went down the road with Gafford and Lively. But what about that for Ant and Cat? Because that was the defining part of the series as well.
Love it.
And I've talked about this a couple of different times, but you saw it in kind of, and I kept using the term front runner, where shots were dropping early, Wolves were cruising. Shots not dropping early, struggles ensue. And so for me, the vast differences that took place in the Nuggets series, points in the paint, that's got to be something where Ant's getting to the rack, Cat's getting to the rack, and using Rudy as an asset. How did they get Rudy involved in Game 6 early? It was Conley rolling forward, getting into the lane, and then lobbing it to Rudy. And so seeing a lot of that in this series, hopefully starting tonight, is a big factor of that. As part of that, PA, who handles foul trouble better? Because you mentioned Lively's a guy that if he's not doing alley-oop slams, he's not taking a ton of charges.
Yep.
He's getting early fouls, and he's got to play with that. And then they kind of use, it's Lively in, Gafford out, Lively in.
It's a true time split.
It is. And so who handles foul trouble better in this series? We worried about Cat, and there were a couple of games where he was in trouble.
Yeah.
But now this series, it's not necessarily that different from the respect with, okay, it's more rim protection, it's all of that. They're going to be handling a lot of offense from the perimeter, but they're going to send these guys in and bang body to body with Cat and Rudy early, often, and all night. That's a concern for me in totality in this series, is who's going to handle foul trouble better, starting with Mark Davis's crew and the whistles this evening.
Great point, because, a sneaky underlying point to Luka Doncic, and Anthony Edwards is really good with this too. They don't take fouls. They like Jaden McDaniels will take dumb fouls. Like there was a game earlier this year at San Antonio, very close game, right in the middle of the key, late in the game. Keldon Johnson grabs a rebound, and Jaden McDaniels, instead of trying to steal it, he just reached around him, and everybody in the world knew it was a foul, and it tilted the game. And it was just ridiculous, because I think he eventually fouled out.
The only time you see Luka with heavy fouls is when they're losing and trying to extend a game late, and he's grabbing and reaching in.
Well, for Doncic, all right, in that OKC series, which went 6 games, his fouls were 4, 3, 4, 1, 0, 0. In the Clippers series, he went 1, 3, 2, 5, 4, 5. So the farther the series goes, the more fouls he attains. Okay, now what's the tell to that? Film. Because you start and you're like, okay, you're feeling each other out. We got Gobert here, and you're doing this with Gafford. And for the state of hockey, when you hear in basketball drop coverage involves a big person setting a pick, and the person, so think Gobert setting a pick and Gafford on him. Let's go vice versa. Gobert on Gafford or Lively, and they pick all the time for Kyrie and Luka. Drop coverage means instead of following the roller, which the guy who's defending the picker is supposed to do, they just drop back, and in essence, a double team creates itself.
Okay.
Because it's like to Gafford, Lively, or Gobert, go ahead. You want to shoot from 18 feet? Go ahead.
you can shoot every single time, and they're never going to shoot. So that, in essence, is drop coverage, but it's the we know that you know that we know that you know that drop coverage is key here with picks for certainly Anthony Edwards, but Luka and Kyrie 100%. So that's drop coverage. You're going to hear it a lot on the radio from Jim Peterson and also on the TV broadcast. But with as series go on, it's just interesting. It's the first time I've seen this or looked at it. That, and I'll look at Kyrie between segments, is the farther the series goes, the more foul trouble Doncic gets in. It's because the good coaches adapt and adjust, and they change not only game plans, but identities like every game or two games. So therefore, as the series moves forward, you better learn as this complement of players go. With Derek Jones Jr., the former Miami Heat, and P.J. Washington, the former Hornet, Daniel Gafford, the former Wizard. Two of those players played with Fat L's. So, I mean, it's like for P.J. Washington, Daniel Gafford, I mean, this is new to them too. And this type of pressure is new to them like it is everybody on the Minnesota Timberwolves. That's going to be fascinating because when people are under pressure, that's when those who consistently can't handle it tend to make the most mistakes. So this close to the NBA Finals for so many players that not Kyrie and Luka. I mean, this second for Luka at this stage, and I don't know about Kyrie, but he's been to the NBA Finals, man, and he won it. But the defense that is played on Luka Doncic as the series advances, and this is, you nailed it after Game 2 of the Nuggets series when you said, the Wolves will go, or maybe Phoenix, I can't remember. They'll go 16-0 if games are officiated like this.
That was the Mark Davis game.
Right. Well, that's key here again, too, because like Devin Booker's good, but nobody's ever going to go out of their way to give Devin Booker a call. Okay. Likewise for Bradley Beal, KD gets calls. Now, Jokic gets calls. First thing I said into that series was, you better get your faces ready for Nikola Jokic because he gets calls. He begs for them, does so with respect. He's humble, and that's why they give him calls. Well, that, the brutality of some of these games went so heavily the way of the Timberwolves. I think the Nuggets got shell-shocked. Like, what? We're the champions, man. You got to call that every time. No, we don't. And well, now with Dallas, they got two of them. Kyrie Irving and Luka Doncic get calls. They complain for calls. Doncic has that permascal, but those are respected offensive players where the game goes so fast and is so physical, they get the benefit of the doubt. Edwards is now getting the benefit of the doubt 8 out of every 10 times. Karl Anthony Towns is getting the benefit of the doubt on 50-50 calls more than he ever has in his career. Why? Because he has matured and he's complaining less. But Doncic and Irving, to your point earlier, getting in the key, pump fakes, Doncic with the ball fake, meshing with the head fake and the shoulder shake in the key. He's a wizard, man. He's
unstoppable.
Phenomenal when he gets into the key. All right, much more on this during the course of the radio show. You're listening to 9 to Noon.
Man.
Thanks, everybody, for sending talkbacks in with the free iHeartRadio app. This is kind of news du Nord, but more or less it's just continuing to follow the Howl vibe in front of Game 1.
And if in this spot, Canterbury Park and CanterburyPark.com, nice enough to sponsor it. I bring that up because live racing continues Saturday at 5 o'clock, but Sunday at 1 in the afternoon for a family day, we have the running of the Bulldogs. So for those of you, specifically those with kids, who enjoy coming out to Canterbury during these dog races, Bulldogs, Corgis, the Wiener Dogs, the Dachshunds, and so on. The first of many to come. This Sunday, 1 o'clock, CanterburyPark.com. It's the running of the Bulldogs.
Bulldoggies and go Timber Puppies. The Wolves tonight. Talk back anytime. Hit that microphone, free iHeartRadio app, and letter Buck.
Hey, PA and Nordo, I had to check in before game 1 of the Western Conference Finals. I feel a really big Rudy Gobert game on the horizon. Dallas has a good front court, but those boys are young, and Rudy is going to take them to school 20-20, 25-25. Let's go Wolves.
What do you think about that? The idea into this series and Rudy, his defense. I mean, I don't know if it's instinctive, reflexive, or just super in vogue to just rip Rudy whenever things aren't going well.
It's dumb.
But he's been a plus 111 in the postseason. The team's better with him on the court.
Yeah.
What do you think about the idea of Rudy, who's had moments, the 9-foot bank shot in game 1, the turnaround to beat the shot clock in game 7. I mean, he's miraculous moments from Rudy. But offensively, in the end, we haven't seen a blow-up game from him. We love those free throws that he's been making. But maybe a 20-20 game from Rudy at some point?
Yep. Good luck with that. I mean, if it happens, it happens. It'll be an aberration. Because the Wolves, they're not constructed to be reliant on Rudy Gobert scoring more than 10 points. So it's gravy if they get it that way. The way the game is officiated tonight by Mark Davis and his crew, with Gobert, Gafford, Lively, P.J. Washington, Naz Reid, Jaden McDaniels, and Karl Anthony Towns. The way it's officiated inside, there's going to be a lot of cheating, and there's going to be a lot of envelope pushing, specifically with P.J. Washington. I mean, I feel like a metaphorical wolf is the only one howling this in the wilderness, but I'm telling you, you're going to see it tonight. P.J. Washington is no joke. And he was ballyhooed at Kentucky, man. He was a badass. Came into the league into a bad situation with the Hornets, even though he beat us earlier this season with a corner 3 when Cap freaked out. But P.J. Washington, it's for those, unlike for those who paid attention to it in the Clippers series. He tried to start a fight with Russell Westbrook every single game, and then Russ was swinging back. So that stopped the game a bunch of times, and Washington initiated a lot of it.
Do you think there's any aspect maybe that, I mean, talking about the personality of Russell Westbrook, is there anybody on our team that has the fuse that'll get into that with him?
Well, that's a good question.
Because you need the other guy. In this case, question. Russell Westbrook's a guy that will gladly engage based on the situation.
Great question. Because that's the mettle and maturity that is tested when the pressure is the highest. So it's abundantly clear to anybody who's watched Karl Anthony Towns all of his career, he is a different man during this postseason. He in the first game against Phoenix, there was a bad missed foul call, and he went to stop and yell at the ref, and then he didn't have to be yelled at. He caught himself and ran back. And, then when we're talking to Finch the next day, he shared something that was so eye-opening and heart-opening for him, but eye-opening for me, or eyebrow-raising for me and eyebrows-raising for everybody else. When he said, we sat down as a team, and I showed them clips of what happens when they complain, and it's 5-on-4. and I left it going, wow. I mean, it's the first time he had said that. And, I'm like, wow, that's amazing that you're able to do that and not have your players feel embarrassed or slighted in front of their dogs, in front of their friends, their coworkers. So that's how dialed in Finchy is here. But the officiating under the key when the ball's not in the paint, that's massive tonight.
Yeah.
There's going to be pushed every game. Now, great question, because P.J. Washington will put, just think state of hockey, cross checks, but use your forearms, okay? That's what P.J. Washington does. Forearms in the back. And he pushes the envelope so it doesn't look like a foul, but he moves you out of the way and it hurts. So the basketball version of cross-checking is coming this evening, en masse. And how they call it is going to answer your question, because if somebody gets away with one and gets away with another, well, that's when people get mad.
Sure.
And that's when they start, bickering and the game stops and they got to be separated and everything. Wonderful question.
I do look at our poise, and I like our poise, PA. I think Finchy, if it does become an issue, they're just going to show Draymond Green earlier in the year trying to drag, wasn't it Rudy he had in the chokehold?
Yeah.
And the restraint that he had to show. Now Rudy,
Draymond Green is an a-hole.
Yeah.
Okay. He sucks.
He sucks on TV, and he sucks the way he treats things on the court. I'm not. Why I clipped is because I don't want to put anybody in Draymond Green's category until they're laying on the ground and they try to kick somebody in their spot multiple times. So Draymond Green sucks. He sucks on TV, and he sucks on the court. So let's move on.
I wonder if Isaiah Stewart's available. We could pick him up.
Well, no, I want Drew Eubanks because all of the steam was back by the buses. Isaiah Stewart for the Pistons punched him in the face, and Eubanks, like Schwarzenegger in whatever that movie was, Terminator, whatever, just like stood there and didn't move.
Woo.
And then Stewart was like, hey, whoa, and then it stopped.
What I want to present to you is I call it 90 seconds of Nas. But when you're talking about Gafford and Isaiah Likely and rim protection and all of that, does it get more athletic for our third big man in Nas?
Making on the double. Now to McDaniels. To Nas Reed left side. Back to Jaden. 6 to shoot. Ant's got it up top against Gordon. Frees himself. Rises up. 3 ball the way. Off the rim. No. Slam. Follow. Nas Reed, the 6th man of the year, comes soaring in from the wing. And he puts the Wolves up 89-82. Nas with a monster fourth quarter. He's got 11 for the game. Conley picks the pocket of Jamal Murray. Conley feeds it to Nas. Down the lane. Extra pass to the corner. Ant sets himself. Fires the 3. He hits it! It's 92-82. The Wolves lead by 10.
Nas Reed providing maybe some sort of X factor in this series as Meets Us Paul Lambert has earned his money for the day by flashing PA multiple times over the last 30 to 40 seconds.
Thank you.
Talking about big games, big moments, another opportunity for Nas Reed to step in and step up for this team in this series.
I'm glad you mentioned that because Nas off the dribble is, when you're down to 4, okay, it's, you start looking at individual players and what are you close to or potentially the very best at? We've talked about Luka and Kyrie and the 1-2 or the 1 and 1A with both of them shooting over you and dribbling around you. That they're 2 of the high-enders in the history of the NBA. Jason Tatum is one of the most clutch players in the history of the NBA. Miles Turner is probably the NBA's best shot blocker. Anthony Edwards has turned into one of the best on-ball defenders of those who like to isolate in the NBA. He handles the picks beautifully. His intuitive nature of knowing when to go over a screen or come under a screen or just beat it and anticipate has become really, really, really good. So Nas Reed has 2 things to him that 99.9% of the world don't have. He's a 6'10", 6'11", 7-footer, whatever, who can really dribble the ball, and he can cross over on you, and he gets rid of his 3-point shot fast.
Really quick.
Really quick, right? And when he has to speed it up, it's no good. That happens to big people. But when
he just steps into it and just drains it, though, when it's in rhythm. It's beautiful.
It's beautiful. It almost spins to the side, too. So, Nas, just be Nas. See, Rudy just be Rudy. The way the series is going to go, there's just something that's going to come out of it with Rudy Gobert's game. Maybe it is points. Maybe it is putbacks. I'm hoping it's offensive rebounds. And I've complained about this for about 2 weeks now with Rudy. He's so willing as an offensive rebounder, but they just clank off his hands. Like the example I use is like back watching practice with Adrian trying to catch screens. It was just mechanical, and it's like his hands were stone. I mean, Rudy's getting 2 offensive rebounds like every single game or less. Well, that is not Gafford. I mean, against Gafford and or Lively, if you bounce it off your hands in uncoordinated fashion, they will take it. And then there's one pass, and then there's another to there's Luka, to Kyrie, and now they got 4 on 2. They go fast when they break out. And then you got like Derrick Jones Jr. trailing it for a dunk. So it's be yourselves, but with whatever you're best at in show, that needs to be an 8 out of 10 consistently for each of those individuals. That's how you get to the NBA Finals. YA next.